each country, each region of the world has been affected, and people are affected differently in a sense, but also affected differently because maybe of how they understand this pandemic or the means they have to apply to dealing with it or lack of those means, and so on and so forth. In our region, we are affected, and it has affected trade because it has also affected the movement of people and all other kinds of movements, whether it is by land or air or sea. People are not really moving as they should to do things as they should in their lives. Trade has been hit, of course, and more seriously affected include Rwanda. Rwanda is a landlocked country. We have no easy access to the sea. We have to go through different countries. The central corridor, we have to go through Tanzania to the port of Dar es Salaam. Through the northern corridor, we have to go through Uganda and Kenya to the port of Mombasa. Now, when these routes are affected at the same time, both of them, it really means serious problems for us. We can't export easily. We can't have things come into the country from outside easily. So in other words, we are more or less strangled economically, or if you specifically talk about trade. But ordinarily, there should be ways around that. In fact, COVID-19 has affected many things, has affected lives and health of people, but it shouldn't have affected maybe common sense that relates to the need, the urgent need for cooperation. People have to work together if things are going to be easy or easier for some of us than if there is no such a cooperation. There are many things intertwined here. One, each country seems to see things the way they want to see them, even about COVID-19, and that's their right. I cannot tell anyone else how they should see it, how they should approach it, how they should manage it. It's not my place, it's none of my business. In the same way, I think somebody else cannot come here and tell me, say, you must handle it like this, because I don't see, I'm not really sure whether this person would be correct in what they are doing themselves. So, because they must be managing different circumstances and different ways of looking at things. But what we can do is, even when we understand things differently or have different approaches and so on and so forth, we can discuss. You can tell me your viewpoint, I'll tell you my viewpoint, and we can narrow these differences of how we see things to the point that we shall easily find a way forward that is going to work well for both of us, even with the different backgrounds, with different understanding, with different ways of seeing things. So that is very important. That is extremely important. Now, so as Rwanda, and again, in this specific unfortunate situation where we are landlocked, we really literally have to beg neighbors to allow us. And again, in a normal sense, these neighbors have a certain obligation to allow those of us who are landlocked to have access to the sea through their countries. Of course, there are rules and ways and laws that govern that, and we would be the first to respect that because we are the ones at the receiving end of these problems. There's no doubt about it. So we are having a problem. You have, as you have read it in the media, physically people have gone there to visit. We have problems across our borders sometimes, whether it is with the northern corridor or with the central corridor. We have had problems. Problems where movement of trucks that are carrying goods either from or to these ports have been delayed or stopped altogether for a long time. And that means a big loss to everyone. It means a big loss to us, but more loss to us, of course, again, for the same reason I have stated. And we have tried everything that we can, even indeed as people at the receiving end of these problems, for being landlocked. We have done everything that we can do according to, almost by the book or by even beyond that, and tried to incentivize, sweeten, and, all kinds of ways to make sure that we are really working together with our neighbors who hold this key as to how we can work together to ease on the movement of goods and especially of trucks. We are still finding difficulty. We are still experiencing serious problems. We still want to continue tackling that because we are suffering a lot on our side. And almost reaching a point where it's like being blackmailed. Behind it, it's like telling someone that, do things my way, the way I see them, the way I understand them. For example, this is around testing. In fact, we have had a regional understanding in the East African community. There are certain things we agreed all together, how we should go about allowing these movements of trucks that carry goods. And therefore, that implies the truck drivers who indeed drive these trucks. We had reached a certain minimum, really, understanding of, to ease on everybody's understanding and problems we have received from that. But it doesn't seem to take shape or take shape predictably and permanently so that we know what to expect. It changes every other day. You have had all kinds of even strikes by protests, by truck drivers, by business people, by it's here, it's there, it's all over the place. Even being able to meet to discuss that and find and resolve whatever outstanding problem there is still a problem. We as from our position, we're really looking forward to addressing this faster than it has been. And let me specifically make clarification. We have seen in the papers, different media channels, people making statements and so on. Some have even brought up an explanation which is not correct at all, which is not true and which is not even fair. Because I have read myself that, and many people must have seen this, where they say that truck drivers in Rwanda have been harassed, or through Rwanda, people coming in from different places from outside of Rwanda, that they are harassed, that they are mistreated, that they are restricted, that it's like they're about to give up. That is not true. Whoever is saying it deliberately, knowing that they are distorting the truth about that case. So that is one point I have to make clear. In fact, the way we have come to be at the receiving end and such a serious problem affecting us, we cannot be the ones to create obstacles and misunderstandings at the same time, unless we've lost our senses, which we haven't. We are as sober as we were before COVID-19. In fact, maybe even more sober because we have learned lessons from this situation of hardships. But what we have discovered is behind it is that central to what we agreed in the East African community is that we should be testing of people so that we know their status and know how to handle them, instead of spreading the virus, the new coronavirus across the region. We took that as something important. Testing, tracing people who have come into contact with people who have been found to be positive, isolating them and putting them in places for treatment, and taking care of them as we can, and then allowing those who have tested negative to go about their ways, and also telling them to be careful because anywhere, again, there is no assuming that there is more of it here than there than wherever. It doesn't matter. It's not a question of who has more people affected than another. We are all affected. In Rwanda, we have cases, absolutely, and they have been going up, in fact, only that we have been able to manage it properly, monitor it. We know what, where, and who, and so on. We have that under control, and that's what is helping us. So I don't see, again, why anybody would be resistant to saying, let's test, let's know how this virus is moving, whether it is from here to, or through Uganda, or here to, or through Tanzania, or back. We all have these cases. There is no question about it. And my problem is not who has more than the other cases, but our problem is we should work together to manage it, to control it. And there are ways known to do that, and through cooperation we can have a very good understanding. So The major problem that has been affecting us is through the Central Corridor. We are trying to talk to our Tanzanian friends and neighbors so that we work together. It's not a problem that can't be addressed, but it is a problem that we are suffering, and some of us very, very effectively and negatively. So we want to, we are the ones really begging. We are begging, but yeah, but even with that, it's going to be difficult to say, no, take this on my terms. Now, we are being put in a position like choose either you suffer because of the coronavirus that will be coming your way in ways that you may not be able to control. That complicates my situation. Or you suffer the consequences of not doing it our way. So we are saying, no, there is one way of doing it. One way of doing it effectively for the good of everyone is through cooperation. Is really feeling for one another and knowing that if we don't work together, of course, some will suffer more than others, and we are on the side of those who suffer more than others. So being given a choice of saying you die because of coronavirus you can't control, or you will die because of not having your way through here to the coast, to the sea that you need. So you can see the dilemma which Rwanda is put in, and we think it's not fair, and we still want to. So coronavirus has killed people, it is killing business, and it is even killing relationship between people and the countries. So at least we can save one thing. We can save. We can save a relationship first, and then later on secure a good understanding of cooperation, and then later on we struggle together to contain the coronavirus. That for us, we have it here, it's known. The numbers are put on the screen every day, they are made public. So we have decided not to hide anything and to deal with it the best way. We have not invented the way of handling it. We have learned it from public health experts, from scientists, from different places where they handled it effectively and have. So it's what we are trying to follow, and we ask our neighbors to bear with us, and plus maybe the coronavirus will one day disappear, and we shall still be there to work together for other things. So that's how it is.